Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gather around the virtual water cooler with us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, all sorts of good stuff, guys. And it's a beautiful day in this virtual neighborhood when our existential Mr. Rogers himself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, is in the house. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, you know, I got to catch up with my favorite hate watch, Manifest, yesterday, and let me just say it's the one TV show that never disappoints me.
Because you always know what you're getting.
It just keeps getting more absurd as I watch it. God bless them.
All right. Hey, listen, guys, we've got a bunch of things that we need to talk about here today, including, but not limited to, it looks like this Indiana Jones thing is still moving forward. We're going to talk about some comments that were made about that. Brand new trailer just dropped for this increasingly intriguing looking movie from Ben Affleck called The Way Back. We're going to talk about that a little bit. James Gunn, God, I love James Gunn, makes a really great statement about deaths in the MCU and things like that. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. Also, Kathleen Kennedy says they are absolutely going to be having female directors for the upcoming Star Wars movies. We're going to talk about that and what that all could mean. But before we get around to all that, there are a couple things we need to talk about off the top. And one of the things we're going to talk about off the top is this. Now, yesterday, we discussed the new F9 Fast and Furious 9 trailer that came out. We talked about what does it mean, you know, John Cena's, all this kind of stuff. The fact that we've seen Han in it. So there's a lot of people talking about what's going on with Fast 9. And according to the trailer, at least what it looked like from the trailer, was that clearly our villain, besides Charlize Theron, who's obviously still a villain as well, that the villain was in fact going to be John Cena. And his name is John Cena. John Cena's our villain. But hold on a second, Rob. Maybe looks are a little bit deceiving, perhaps? So he was basically asked, this is what's going on. John Cena was asked, well, actually, Vin Diesel and John Cena together were asked, oh, so John Cena's the villain, right? And, you know, Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel himself, says, well, you know, all characters are multidimensional. But then John Cena came straight up and said the following. He said, you know, when asked if he's the villain, we'll leave it for the audience. We'll leave it for the Fast family around the world to decide who's bad and who's good. Keep in mind, the trailer shows just enough for you to have a ton of questions and me not being able to answer all of them. Rob, as the one probably most excited in this house about the upcoming Fast 9 movie, you're hearing John Cena say this. What do you think the implications, if any, there are behind his statements and what he just said?
Well, you know, John, there are many villains that are misunderstood, and all of our best villains think that what they're doing is somehow not villainous. And with this franchise, you know, as we're talking about them approaching orbit and finally going into space and having pod races around the moon, you just never know. And I would tend to think that they want to keep it ambiguous. Maybe he's deep undercover the way Dom was in Furious 8. I don't know. I mean, like you said, is Jacob, the brother we've never heard about, really Dom's brother? Are they blood brothers? Is it something else? Maybe he's cloned. Maybe he's a Jedi that was secreted away on Earth after Order 66 was given. Who knows? With this franchise, anything goes. They've definitely billed him as the villain. But then again, you know, Hobbs, who started to be, let's call him an antagonist in Fast 5, turned out to be a compatriot until they actually had a falling out in the real world. So maybe it turned into something like that. Maybe it's Charlize Theron who's truly still the real villain. Maybe she's behind it all. Maybe Han is the villain. I don't know. All I know is, John, #justice is served.
But is justice served? I mean, if Han's alive, that means no justice was ever required. If he's alive, no justice was required. Here, I'll tell you what I think this statement means. Here's what I think this statement means. This statement that John Cena just made means that the speculation that a lot of the fans had after seeing this trailer, that one of two things are going to happen at the end of this movie with John Cena's character. Number one, he's sitting down and saying grace at the table with the family at the end. Or two, he dies in Dominic's arms at some point, having become the good guy. Like, that was mentioned by a couple of viewers yesterday, that we totally believe that is ultimately what's going to happen with John Cena's character here. And I think this statement just kind of reaffirms that. I think he's going to kind of be the misunderstood, and we're going to get the same. Jason, you mentioned The Rock was kind of the antagonist at one point. Jason Statham was the antagonist at one point. Now Shaw's a hero in the franchise. I don't see any possibility that this movie ends with John Cena's character, alive or dead, not being a hero. I just don't see any way around. I just don't see a scenario here, Rob, where this movie doesn't end and John Cena's the hero. Alive or dead, he's the hero. What do you think?
I think that's probably, knowing this franchise as well as I do, I think that's probably a good bet. Although, knowing that this is also leading into the 10th and supposedly final Fast and Furious movie, as we talked about yesterday, I want to see an epic, just knockdown drag. It looks like we get a couple of great girl fights in this movie again, but I think we're going to get The Rock versus John Cena in Fast 10. That's what everybody wants. And actually, I didn't know I wanted it until you mentioned it yesterday on the show, but I've been thinking about little else, John. And I hope that
The
John
Rock versus Cena,
whether he's good or bad, I just know that he needs to fight The Rock. I need to see John Cena and The Rock. Don't you want to see that?
Oh, I think everybody wants to see it on, even if it's on an absurd, morbid curiosity level. I think everybody wants to see that to some degree. The question here is, guys, you've now heard John Cena's comments. How does this affect your view of the upcoming movie? Do you think this pretty much confirms that he's going to turn good, or maybe he's not even all that bad? Or do you think this is a little bit of misdirect and maybe he is the bad guy who's been behind it all along, the architect of all your pain, Dom? Maybe he was it. I don't know. Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. One more thing to talk about off the top here is this. Rob, one of the absolute treasures of Hollywood, I say this with no facetiousness, to me this man is a treasure, is Rick Moranis. I think Rick Moranis is an absolute treasure. And, after and following some personal tragedies and issues in his life, he withdrew from Hollywood. He focused on being a dad, stuff like that. And we haven't seen him around for a long time. As a matter of fact, we recently heard that he was approached to appear in the upcoming Ghostbusters film. He declined, as he's been declining everything for a very long time, other than doing some voice work. Now, however, comes a story from the Disney Insider. We all know that a follow-up, a sequel, if you will, to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, called Just Shrunk, with Josh Gad playing the adult son of Rick Moranis' character from the original film. Apparently, he is in talks to come in and appear in this movie as the dad, as his returning to his character from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Now, would I prefer to see Rick Moranis, if he was going to make a big return to the screen? Would I prefer to see him make his return in a Ghostbusters? Sure. Yes, I would prefer that. But listen, if this is true and Rick Moranis does come back, two things happen. Number one, I'm all of a sudden magically interested in Shrunk, because I was not, like, in the least interested in this Disney Plus project. Not in the least was I interested in it. If he's coming back, even if it's for 5 minutes, I mean, this is an event. I'm interested. Number two, it just makes me ludicrously happy that he would be deciding to come back and step back into the limelight again. I believe there is a Rick Moranis-shaped hole in the heart of Hollywood, Rob, and I believe it's been there for a long time, and it's time for him to come back. I hope this is true, and I hope this works out. Rob, you hear this story, again, being reported by the Disney Insider, that he's coming back, that he's in talks to appear in this thing. Number one, do you think maybe he should just continue enjoying his life and not come back? And number two, if he does come back, do you think this is a good move for the movie?
Well, like you, John, I am a lifelong Rick Moranis fan, all the way back to the SCTV days. And then, of course,
yeah.
I mean, as you would say, I might as well say it, he's a good Canadian kid.
He is.
And I loved Strange Brew. I really did. I loved him when he played Ellen Ames' manager in Streets of Fire, Diane Lane's manager. I loved him in Ghostbusters. He had a great 1984, Rick Moranis. And I think that if this movie truly is going to be called Shrunk, I'm hoping this is the creed of the Honey, I Shrunk franchise, and Rick Moranis plays the Sylvester Stallone role. You know, we've got the GOAT coming back from that franchise being Rick Moranis, and we're going to see something that'll snag him a Best Supporting Actor nomination, perhaps at next year's or 2022's Academy Awards, because, man, I miss me some Rick Moranis.
It would be nothing but a great and glorious thing. Question is for you guys, how interested were you at all in Shrunk to begin with? And the question is, if he does come back, does this suddenly increase your interest in it? It shouldn't, but I got to admit, it does for me. I go from a 0 interest to probably about a 60% interest in this thing, just from a potential whisper that he's going to be in it. How do you guys feel about it? Jump into the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right. With that stuff down and out of the way, guys, let's get on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, see, it's really rather simple. You guys come up with our main topics by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. It's completely free. Just fill it out, hit submit with your topic or question, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Mike, who writes, "Hey, John, Kathleen Kennedy has confirmed that Indiana Jones 5 will not be a reboot. So Harrison Ford will be returning. Does this surprise you? And do you think this movie will actually happen? Thanks." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Mike. And yes, at the recent BAFTA Awards where Kathleen Kennedy was given like their highest honor at that thing, she was asked about Indiana Jones, and she said the following. This is the statement she made about Indiana Jones 5. "We're working away, getting the script where we want it to be, and then we'll be ready to go. Harrison Ford will be involved. Yeah, it's not a reboot. It's a continuation." Okay, so there's a couple of things here in this statement that are kind of interesting and kind of no duh. Knowing that Harrison Ford has always been involved in this project, he's always been involved in this project from day one. Knowing that he has always been involved in this project, Rob, we've known this isn't a reboot. I mean, we've known that for a long time. That really hasn't been a question. Now, all the delays that we've seen from this movie over and over and over again, we just recently talked about their latest delay a couple of months ago. That has raised the question about whether this thing is going to happen at all, and that's still a question regardless of what she just said. That's still a question. But the question has never been really, since knowing that he's involved, that it was going to be a reboot. So that's fine. We know it's not going to be a reboot. Great, fine. Although I am also completely fine with the idea of rebooting Indiana Jones at this point, but we'll see how this all goes. To me, though, Rob, like I just said, the big question remains, is this thing even going to happen at all? And right. I'm not at the point, I've mentioned this before, I'm not personally at the point where I'm saying it's not going to happen, but I am at the point of I'll believe it when I see it. Like, this thing was supposed to be in production already. Right now, there's still no solid plans. They're saying how you don't have a script to where you want it to be when you've allegedly been working on it for 4 years. I don't know what to say. If you can't get your script to where you want it to be in 4 years, I simply don't know what to tell you at that point. So they seem to keep holding on to this thing. Harrison looks great for his age, man. He looks amazing. But the fact of the matter is he ain't getting any younger. So I don't know. I'm just at a place. I believe that it's not going to be a reboot, but I'm still at a place that I'll believe it when I see it. Rob, you're hearing these comments and you're hearing them saying we're still working on it. Harrison's still involved. Number one, did you ever consider or think that this project that they've been talking about for years was going to be a reboot? And then secondly, where's your confidence level right now that they're actually going to make this movie and this movie will actually see a movie theater screen?
Well, I mean, as I watch a show like Picard run its course with a 79-year-old, or in character, he's 97, I have no problem seeing Harrison Ford come back as Indiana Jones. And as long as the script is better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which isn't too hard. The real question that I have is George Lucas involved? Is Steven Spielberg involved? I can't imagine, regardless of what you thought of Last Crusade, most people really enjoy. I am a big fan of the Indiana Jones franchise. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is a near perfect movie. I really loved Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade I have problems with, but it's still monumentally enjoyable. And I would love to see this film go out on a grand note. Now that sort of Indiana Jones has become his father, it's become Henry Jones. I hope it gets made. I would love to see it get made. I think obviously Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy's husband, has a link to this franchise all the way back to Raiders. I mean, he was in Raiders. And I would love to see this really done right. Again, to bring it up again, love to see the Creed of the Indiana Jones movies. You know, a movie that really goes out. I mean, I guess they would have to set it in the 60s, wouldn't they? And I think that would be really an interesting period of time to set this movie in. I mean, you know, I keep going back. You and I are big fans of Guy Ritchie's The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I would love to see an Indiana Jones movie with sort of a swinging London in the 60s, not the way Austin Powers did it, but, you know, like an early Bond vibe, which I think could be very, very cool. I don't know what artifact that they would go after, but if it was good, I just hope that John Williams will score it. God bless him. I hope he's still here. Because, again, I can't imagine an Indiana Jones movie without John Williams scoring it. I want him to make it if it, you know.
I shouldn't be surprised that the Indiana Jones film that you have the most trouble with is actually my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Last Crusade is my favorite of the Indiana Jones movies. I love all of them save the Crystal Skull. You know, I'm kind of unpopular in the sense that this is how I feel about the Crystal Skull. I think if that wasn't an Indiana Jones movie, it's a perfectly serviceable little adventure film.
Right.
But it's not a serviceable Indiana Jones film. That's kind of my feeling of it. But I think it's a perfectly serviceable look. And whatever artifact they're going after, as long as it's not an alien artifact, I'm perfectly good. As long as it's not an alien artifact, I'm perfectly good. So the question comes down for you guys. What do you think about this? Did any of you think there was a possibility they may reboot this? I think they will eventually, but not for this project. But the bigger question really is, not is this going to be a reboot? I think we all knew that it wasn't. Is it even going to happen? And I'm kind of in the middle of the road on that right now. How do you guys feel about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Rachel, who writes, "You touched on this briefly, but Hamilton is actually coming out on October 2021, not 2020. They said it was filmed, but why would it take 20 months to come out? Do they mean will film? It's not like it's a movie production. Hell, Doctor Strange 2 hasn't started filming yet, and it comes out months prior. Anyways, not complaining, genuinely curious. What are your thoughts?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Rachel. And as Rachel's alluding to, it was announced that the iconic blockbuster Broadway show Hamilton, which I have seen, and it lived up to the hype. It completely lived up to the hype. I loved it. It's going to come to movie theaters. It's not a movie version. What it is, it's a professionally shot stage presentation. So it's the regular Hamilton stage presentation with all the original Broadway cast, and they're going to and they shot it. It's already been shot. They already shot it, and then they're just going to take that version and put it in theaters. So this is the report that came from Variety. The movie version isn't an adaptation in the vein of Miranda's upcoming In the Heights, but rather a live capture of a stage performance. It was shot, so it's already been shot. It was shot at the Richard Rogers Theater in Manhattan before founding members began to depart the production. Rights to the stage film went for an eye-popping $75 million in a deal brokered by Endeavor Content on behalf of Miranda. 3 individuals close to the negotiations told Variety. Endeavor shopped the project around Hollywood, presenting to studios including Warner Brothers before Disney nabbed it up for $75 million is what they bought this thing for. All right. So the question becomes here. Why is it going to, if it's already been shot and it's already in the can and you don't need to do any big post-production work on it, and it's already there, why is it not going to come out until October of 2021? Over a year and a half away. Why wait that long? What's the point? Like, what's the issue here? Well, as we already kind of mentioned, the issue is clearly not that they need to do post-production. This is a live capture thing. This thing's done. It's done. It's just sitting on a shelf waiting to be released. So that's not the issue. I don't believe it's an issue of, well, we just feel like Hamilton is an October kind of release. And this October is too packed, so we'll go for October 2021. I don't believe that's the issue here either. I believe 100% the issue here is this. I don't think Disney had a choice. Hamilton is still a monstrously popular live stage show across the country that they are making money on hand over fist from people flooding out to the live theater to watch Hamilton. And they're eating it up and they're loving it. I believe, Rob, that this is a situation where Lin-Manuel Miranda and his company basically said, okay, yes, we will sell you the rights to this movie and you can put this in theaters, but you can't do it until at least second half 2021. Because if we put this out in theaters, it's going to make a ton of money, but it's probably going to affect how many people go to see the live show at that point. We want to make all the money we can with the live show, and then 2021, go ahead and put it in theater so then it's accessible for everybody. So I don't believe this is a situation, Rob, that Disney just is lazy and wants to wait to put it out. I think this is a situation where it was probably built right into the contract where the stage show producers themselves didn't want it out in theaters too early while they're still having so much success with people going out to watch the live show. So anyway, that's how I see it, Rob. Rob, you've read this story. How do you interpret this whole thing?
Well, I think it's a very astute observation, John. I think you're probably right about that, but I would also add that just because they captured, I mean, this is from a post-production standpoint, they might have spent no expense, and I'm sure Lin-Manuel Miranda probably bankrolled this himself. He probably had it shot professionally, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was edited, because even when you shoot, they might have shot this thing with 10 cameras, 12 cameras, and they might have a massive amount of post-production to do, and he was waiting to see if he could get a deal because he probably spent a great deal of his own money to shoot it. And then maybe it's just not the mixing of this, because, my God, if they mix this and edit it could be a really stunning piece of cinema. I would imagine it's probably going to be one of the greatest looking stage performances ever filmed. I used to watch a lot of, believe it or not, operas back in the Laserdisc days. There was a lot of operas they put out on Laserdisc, and I would imagine this is pretty stunning. And can you imagine if Lin-Manuel Miranda, they probably took this out and it was up for bidding, and Disney's like, if this goes on to Disney Plus, this will be a draw for years. I think $75 million is actually a bargain. I mean, when Netflix is paying $150 million plus to make things like Six Underground, to get Hamilton, which is one of the most beloved musicals, certainly not of just the modern era, but maybe ever, and to have a beautiful stage production, I mean, my God, it'll drive subscribers. We think of Star Wars as being something people would flock to, but man, if you're an older audience that wants to see musicals and haven't been able to get to see Hamilton live in New York or any of the traveling companies that are putting it out around the world, this is a perfect reason to get maybe a different demographic to sign up for Disney Plus. I think it's a shrewd move. I think it's an incredibly a savvy investment. And I got to tell you, being somebody I love musicals, stage musicals, I haven't seen Hamilton, and this makes me salivate with desire to see it. I'll bet it's going to be something really special.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge and big, and I think, look, this is just a win-win for everybody involved.
For everyone.
Question is, guys, how do you feel about the release date of October 2021? Do you think it makes good business sense? Do you think, nah, man, put this thing out while it's as hot as possible? Put it in theaters now. How would you approach it? Jump on down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Jeremy Shibasu, who writes, "Hey, John, So there's a new trailer for Ben Affleck's sports drama, The Way Back, for Warner Brothers. I loved this trailer. I don't want to jump to anything, but I have a feeling this movie will be very heartwarming and breakthrough for Ben after all he's been through with his recovery. What are your thoughts? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, listen, the first trailer for Ben Affleck's The Way Back came out a while ago, and we all enjoyed it. I mean, it was a good trailer. It's a fascinating story from the perspective of Ben Affleck, because look, Ben Affleck's struggles with substance abuse, particularly alcohol, have been very well publicized and talked about very much. And a lot of us have always found it very interesting that he would go into a movie playing a character that has massive struggles with alcoholism. Some people thought it was inappropriate for him to do so. Others thought it would probably be very cathartic both for him and maybe other audience members who have struggled with the same thing to see him do that. Regardless, the first trailer was pretty good, and I liked what we saw. Well, now a new trailer has come out for it that gives us broader perspective on the story of it, a little bit more insight into the character, and all that kind of stuff. Rob, this is one of my most anticipated movies of this year now. That's the power of a trailer. Even a second trailer. This has gone from a movie that I thought looked pretty interesting. Man, this could be very good, and blah, blah. This has suddenly become one of my most anticipated films of the year. Now, granted and admittedly, I'm a big Ben Affleck fan, so it's true. So I'm always curious about anything that he's going to be involved in. But I'm telling you what, I was moved by this trailer. I didn't just enjoy the trailer. I was moved by it. I'm watching, and this is just a 2-minute trailer, and I'm finding myself sucked into this man's struggle. Clearly, he and his wife had a kid. We learned that from the trailer. The kid apparently died. We learned that from the trailer. He's brought back to coach a team, something he had done once. That little speech he gave in the trailer about, my father didn't like me very much. And all of a sudden, when I was good at basketball, he was paying attention to me. And I was bitter about that, so I walked away from it all. I mean, I'm just sitting there watching a trailer. I'm like, I am so into this character, and I'm so into Ben playing this character, and I'm flabbergasted how much I love this. And there's no spaceships, and there's no lasers coming out of eyes, and there's no lightsabers. And to me, this was one of the most compelling, wonderful trailers I've seen in a while. I love this trailer. I cannot wait to see this movie. And again, Ben just showing what some of us have been saying for a long time. Too many people sleep on how good of an actor Ben Affleck is. And I think this looks phenomenal. I cannot wait to see it. Rob, why did you hate this trailer?
Bruh, I love this trailer. First of all, as much as I love genre cinema, science fiction, fantasy, and horror, or world cinema, one of the things people don't understand about me is I love a great sports movie. Sports movies are all the way back to things like Slapshot. I've loved sports movies my entire life. I love movies like Bull Durham. I love Any Given Sunday. I love a movie called North Dallas 40 from the late 70s, early 80s, which is another football movie. I mean, maybe it's because I've always seen sports movies the same way I'll see a good cop movie or a good lawyer movie. It's the one sports movies are the one genre where there's a purity of spirit and heart left in them, and it doesn't matter. It's like the pure emotion of a coach that has his own problems coming in and gathering up a team of misfits and shaping them into a strike team that can win. There's something uniquely, I don't know, American, or maybe it's just human. That I love that. And when he gave that speech, dude, I was like, oh man, I am so into this. And like you, I think Ben Affleck, he's still trying to shake off Gigli, which was over almost 20 years ago. People are still making fun. Ben Affleck, I don't think, even back to Dazed and Confused, when he plays a monumental douche, paddling the younger kids' asses to initiate them into high school. That guy commits. And I've loved Ben Affleck as an actor, even since all the way back to Dazed and Confused, whether it's, Good Will Hunting, where he's not even the lead, or Chasing Amy, but an Argo. I mean, he always...
The one nobody ever talks about is Changing Lanes that he did with Samuel L. Jackson. I love him in that.
He's great in Changing Lanes. I loved him as Daredevil. I mean, the guy's committed.
Me too.
And he's been through a lot. He's a world-class filmmaker. You know, I really liked Live by Night, a beautiful movie that I thought got the shaft. He's a smart, passionate guy. He's a world-class filmmaker. And this, to me, I'm looking at this going, man, I wanted to see. I didn't know I wanted to see this movie as much as I did, but that second trailer, bro, the feels right in the heart. Bring it on.
I agree. Question here is, guys, have you had a chance to see the second trailer for The Way Back? Did you like it as much as we did? Maybe it didn't work for you. Maybe it's just not your cup of tea. How did you feel about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by George Harris, who writes, Kathleen Kennedy was asked by the BBC ahead of the BAFTAs if the Star Wars movies will ever have a female director. She said that she would, and that they were already working with female directors like Deborah Chow on The Mandalorian and other Disney Plus Star Wars movies. John, do you think that there will be female directors for Star Wars movies? And do you think that Kathleen Kennedy will still be the head of Lucasfilm when a Star Wars movie with a female director debuts to the public? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, inevitably, whenever Kathleen Kennedy does or say anything, it causes a bit of a stir. And particularly when it comes to women's involvement in Star Wars. Now, she was asked directly. It's important to keep this in mind. She didn't get up on a pulpit one day and call a press conference to announce to the world that I'm going to have female directors direct Star Wars. She was asked a question on the carpet of the BAFTAs. You know, are you going to have women directing Star Wars movies in any of the upcoming Star Wars movies? To which Kathleen Kennedy said the following. She says, we've already got them. We're doing Mandalorian. We've got 2 or 3 fantastic women working with Star Wars, and we just brought in Deborah Chow, who is doing the Obi-Wan series. Will they direct movies? Oh, absolutely, without question. Will we see female directors directing upcoming Star Wars movies? To which she answers, oh, absolutely, without question. Predictably, and like clockwork, one of the big responses we've seen to her statement in this, because we all know, we as film fans, and let's face it, we're all guilty of this. This isn't just one group of people. We're all guilty of this. We take one statement made by a filmmaker and we attach an entire dogma around it and we jump all over it. So it's not surprising that as soon as she said this, we started to see on Twitter and other places, she's got an anti-men, all-female agenda. If she's only going to look at female directors, she wants to wipe out men off the planet and blah, 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 blah. That was inevitable. We also saw some very level-headed commentary about it. We saw some very level-headed commentary about it from some people, too, who was wondering about, you know, the veracity of her statement and what she's saying. But there's something I want to point out here. You know, just to anybody out there that is yelling and screaming bloody murder, that this is all a part of Kathleen Kennedy's anti-men, just nothing but pro-women, just wants to wipe men off the face of the earth sort of thing. There is a little statistic I think we need to keep in mind. That little statistic is this. To date, unless I'm missing one, and I might be, there have been 12 Star Wars feature films. Every single one has been directed by a man, including the 5 Star Wars feature films that have been done under the watch of Kathleen Kennedy. I want to mention that again. Every single Star Wars movie that Kathleen Kennedy has overseen, 5 of them, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, Rogue One, Solo: A Star Wars Story, every single one of them, she's picked a man to direct them. She's picked 10 male directors, if you want to count all the ones she hired and then later fired, before bringing in other male directors. I only throw that out as a little fact to keep in mind before the hysteria of Kathleen Kennedy hates men, hates male directors, only has a pure female agenda. 12 Star Wars movies, every single one of them directed by men, including the 5 films that she has headed including all the directors that were on those films and later fired. Every single one of them was a man. Any statement that Kathleen Kennedy has some anti-man agenda is completely squashed by this simple fact. It's just simply fact. So, this brings a new objection that people have. The objection that then some people have, Rob, is, well, she shouldn't be, excluding looking at men. She shouldn't just be looking at women and saying the only people who can direct the next one are women. Time out for a second. Just calm down and keep something in mind. She never said we will never have a man direct a Star Wars film again. There are some people I'm seeing online reacting like that's what she said. Like she just said we will never have a man direct a Star Wars film ever again. That is not what she said. She has simply said and made the statement that we are absolutely going to have women direct a future film. To which some people I've seen online say, well, why not just get the best person for the job? Okay, fair enough. But she never once said that she wasn't going to get the best person for the job. Look, Rob, the way I see it, it comes down to something like this. We often talk about why I don't discuss X actor in X role, because I think for any role, there's probably about 20 or 30 really great performers who could play that role, and any of them would be great for it. So just pick one of those 20 to 30, get somebody who's great for it. I'm sure it's really, really close between them. So as long as you pick any one of those, I'm going to be good with it as long as you get somebody who's really good and really talented. I feel the same way about directors. There's no one director and only one director who could possibly direct a movie. There's probably a good pool of directors that it's really tight and really close, and they can pick one of those directors as long as they pick from this right group of directors, this really good, talented, qualified group, and ignore all the other ones, and you pick any from that group, I think you're good. The problem has been, over the course of 12 Star Wars films, there are women in that group. They've just never been picked. And Star Wars, I have my criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy and the way I believe she's managed this thing, and those criticisms are well documented. One of the things that I think she has instituted that has been a good thing has been kind of creating their own farm system like a sports team and developing their own in-house talent.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons I was excited that Dave Filoni was going to be directing live action episodes of The Mandalorian development. That's why I was so excited that we've seen somebody like a Bryce Dallas Howard come in, or a Deborah Chow, who is already well established. So that's a little bit besides the point. But they're developing their own in-house talent. You see, to me, this statement is not a statement of, I'm done looking at men. That's not the statement. The statement is, we've got a lot of really good female directors, and it's time that we stop excluding them from getting opportunities. We've given tons of opportunities over and over and over and over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, it's 12-0. We've given tons of opportunities. It's time that out of this group of directors, of which there are males and females, it's time for us to stop excluding the female directors from getting a shot at directing one of the bigger projects. Especially when you've got some experienced and talented female directors in there, it's time to let one of them have a shot at one of the Star Wars movies. So I don't interpret anything of what Kathleen Kennedy said as I'm excluding men. I haven't interpreted anything from what Kathleen Kennedy said, I'm going to put a woman director in here regardless of if she's a good director or not. That's not what she said. There are people out there trying to make it sound like that's what she said, but that's not what she said. She simply said, we work with a lot of female directors. We have a pool of good, talented female directors. You're absolutely going to see one get a shot to direct a Star Wars movie moving forward. And there is nothing wrong with that. I see nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And it's time to start giving some opportunities to somebody else. Anyway, Rob, you saw this comment from her. You saw these statements from her. What was your initial reaction to them? And what do you think the ramifications are for what Kathleen Kennedy just said?
Well, look, I've been on record saying I'm a great admirer of Kathleen Kennedy and what she's accomplished over her career, which is amazing. I mean, any filmmaker, male or female, whoever you are, would love to have her credits. But, I always ask myself, on the planet Earth, for the people who are qualified to direct a studio tentpole, how many of those are female and how many of them even want to direct a Star Wars movie? You know, maybe this whole idea that we should have women directors directing Star Wars films, I think the question we should be asking is, if women are qualified, if we have female directors that can direct studio tentpoles, would you want them to direct a Star Wars movie or something wildly original that brings a new voice to cinema? I mean, you know, it's such a strange thing. And like she pointed out, Bryce Dallas Howard is somebody that's beginning a directing career, and I thought it was really exciting that she was an approved director. There's 8 episodes of The Mandalorian. She was allowed to direct 1. Deborah Chow directed 2, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And that's 3 out of the 8 episodes we have basically with burgeoning new female talent, and Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau thought enough of that talent to allow them to direct these episodes of The Mandalorian, which was hugely important to Disney, to Lucasfilm, to Disney Plus. So that is a huge vote of confidence. And I think anybody that is looking to see where female directors are going in the industry, the fact that those 2 hires were made on such a high profile show like The Mandalorian is really, really important. And I think when Kathleen Kennedy comes out and says, yes, we're directing female talent, or we're picking female directing talent, like you said, they're doing what they used to do in the old studio system, which is they're allowing female directors to come in, cut their teeth, show their chops, and they get promoted upward. It's actually a pretty interesting and I think pretty exciting way to do things. And if, as I suspect, I think you want to hear my theory about the Obi-Wan series that Deborah Chow is going to direct?
Oh, yes.
I think they're retooling it into a feature film. It began as a feature film. It was going to be a Star Wars story, Obi-Wan, a Star Wars story. They pulled the plug on that after Solo. I think they tried to develop it as an 8-episode or 10-episode or a 6-episode series, and they realized, you know what? Why don't we just go back to the way this was going to be, because it worked really well as a feature film? Why don't we go back and make it a feature film, and once the script is retooled back to the way it originally was, then we're going to announce it. Then Deborah Chow is going to be our first director, and they're going to come out with a new Star Wars movie that the development was done 3 years ago. That's why I think Ewan McGregor, at every chance he gets, is saying, nope, we're still making it, because he knows that they're going to announce it as a feature. The guy's a movie star. Everybody wants to see Star Wars continue. And I think of all the projects they have in development, I think Obi-Wan is probably a slam dunk. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to announce it as maybe not Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie, but I bet they could slide it right into that 2022 slot very comfortably. And it's going to wind up on Disney Plus anyway.
I'm going to tell you what. I wasn't going to say this because I don't really know that I believe the source myself. But after my big angry tirade about how they're letting things fall apart with Obi-Wan, I had somebody reach out to me. And the suggestion to me was that it's being retooled for a feature film.
Yep.
Now, there's a reason why I didn't make that a story on the John Campea Show, and I didn't make that a headline, because I'm not sure that I believe that. I'm not sure I believe that.
I have no.
But I think it's fascinating that you just brought that up, because that what you just said is actually something that was whispered to me. So, but I don't know that that's true. I'm not saying this true, but that's interesting that you thought of that.
I have no inside information, just because people say that, I did the story on the Duel of the Fates script, but I have no inside information about this. But to me, it makes perfect sense. They have a director that they're behind 100%, who already directed over 2 hours worth of Star Wars, and it was very well received. They have a film that had already been in active development, because as we know from the Duel of the Fates script, look at how much pre-production artwork was done. There were hundreds of pieces done. I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces done for Obi-Wan. It was basically ready to go, and they're going back and they're thinking, and you know what? Kathleen Kennedy is going to make that announcement, and they're going, Obi-Wan's going to be a feature, and everyone's going to be like, oh, so maybe Kathleen Kennedy does know what she's doing. Deborah Chow's directing. Who would say no to that? And Ewan McGregor, whenever he talks about Obi-Wan, which I watched him talk about 2 nights ago on a talk show, he's got a big smile on his face. So
I'll tell you what, though. Here's still the problem I have. I have no issue with what Kathleen Kennedy said. I think what she said was perfectly good and made perfect sense.
Yep.
But here's my problem. It almost doesn't matter because I have a 75% certainty that whoever Kathleen Kennedy hires to direct the next Star Wars movie is 7 months later going to depart the project over creative differences because that's the track record. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if she hires a woman or a man to direct this next film because whoever she picks ain't going to direct it anyway because that's how Kathleen Kennedy rolls. She doesn't pick the right person to start with. She's not on the same page with them. And then 6 months to a year later, the dreaded creative differences came up and they have to depart. So it almost doesn't matter. But wouldn't it be great?
I don't know, man. I think they've already got a great track record with Deborah Chow. I mean, she's directed at least... And I think what she's already on the same page. She proved herself as a team player. She got to come up under the tutelage or under the watchful eye of Jon Favreau, who I think is going to direct a Star Wars feature. We shall see, probably the Kevin Feige feature, whatever that's going to be. I think I think Star Wars is going to move into a very exciting, beginning with The Mandalorian. It's the end of one era with the Rise of Skywalker coming out, but The Mandalorian has ushered in the new era of Star Wars, and I think it's going to be very exciting indeed because their trial by fire they've been through the crucible, and they're going to come out stronger and better on the other end. At least that's what I'd like to believe.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we made this question the topic of today's question of the day. And the question that we posed to you was a very simple one. And that question was this. Kathleen Kennedy has said that she will absolutely have a female director for an upcoming Star Wars film. Do you see that as a positive, negative, or neutral thing? We talked this and more. We put this up just before the show started. Right now, almost 3,000 of you guys have voted. 28.8% of you guys are saying it's a positive thing. 11.7% of you are saying it's a negative thing. 59.5% of you are saying, it's a neutral thing. It's cool if it's a woman. It's cool if it's a guy. I fall on it's a positive thing because, again, when I look at that statistic, Rob, that it's 12-0, including all the directors Kathleen Kennedy has had so far have all been male, I think it's time to make sure that, considering she has access to some very talented directors with vision that are female, it's time to give one of them a shot at this point. So I see it as a positive. At very worst, it's a neutral. But anyway, that's what it is right now. 28.8 are saying positive, 59.4 are saying neutral, and 11.7 are saying it's a negative thing. Question is, guys, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's a good thing? Do you also feel like me that even if she does get a woman to direct it, they're just going to lose the director anyway? I don't know. How are you feeling about it right now? Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Bishop Deus, who writes, "All hail, and all hail to you, Bishop. I saw that Twitter exchange James Gunn had with a fan regarding if main characters should die in the MCU movies, and Gunn gave a really good reason why they should. Just wondering what your position is on main characters dying in big franchise movies is." All right, thanks a lot for sending in the question, Bishop. And yes, so basically, here's the scenario. Somebody wrote to James Gunn, who is currently working on his Suicide Squad movie, and then is immediately going to roll over and start doing his Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Somebody asked him on Twitter, basically saying, just please don't kill any of the characters. Just don't kill any characters. Don't kill any characters. To which James Gunn gave a really good response, but I also believe a really good philosophy on the death of characters, significant characters, in these large shared cinematic universes. This is what James Gunn said. He said this in Twitter in reply. "So you don't think any characters in films should die? I can't agree. I think films help us to deal with our own mortality and the mortality of those we love, and seeing that through the lens of a story or fable or myth is of benefit to people. In addition, the death of some characters makes the survival of other characters more meaningful." I want to repeat that last part. Although the first part was great too, but I want to repeat the last part. "In addition, the death of some characters makes the survival of others more meaningful." Rob, one of the big criticisms, obviously I'm a massive MCU fan. I love the MCU. I love the MCU films, some more than others, but I'm a big fan of the MCU, clearly. But as anybody who's watched me for any period of time knows, one of my personal frustrations with the MCU has been the whole issue of fake deaths. That they apparently kill a character, only that character comes back later in the movie, never actually died in the first place, is resurrected from somehow. They pull another dimensional version of them, which is just the same thing, blah, blah, blah. That has been one of the big drawbacks to me with the MCU, because what it does, and I've said this a number of times, and this goes to what James Gunn has just said. What it does is, because they have faked deaths so many times, that when a character now dies, I don't get the full emotional impact of it because I don't really believe they're dead. I don't really believe they're gone. I don't believe it. So even when Tony Stark dies at the end of Endgame, a very powerful scene, but that power was mitigated on me because, oh yeah, he's coming back though. He's going to be back. When we talked about this before at the end of Infinity War, that great scene, Tom Holland, I don't want to go, Mr. Stark. Don't worry, kid, you're not going anywhere. You got a contract for the next movie. I mean, that beautiful, powerful, wonderful scene was a little bit tempered by the fact that I just know he's coming back. Black Panther standing there reaching his hand out to help Okoye up, and then dying in front of her king dying in front of her eyes. There were people weeping, Rob, weeping in the theater I was in when I saw that movie. When T'Challa started to dust and died. But not me. Because I just know he's coming back. He's coming back. And as a matter of fact, when Erin Cummings had never seen Captain America Winter Soldier. And her and Tom came over to watch it with me and Ann one night. And they have that great death scene of Nick Fury. And remember, Erin had not caught up on MCU films. She didn't know at the time what came after this. She goes, oh yeah, but he's not actually dead, because they don't kill major characters in these movies. So she's not actually dead. So it was funny because I'm watching her having no emotional impact on her on the death, because she knows that Marvel doesn't really kill anybody unless they're secondary or side characters. Quicksilver, Yondu, things like, yeah, there have been a couple of characters that have died and stayed dead, but I mean, Loki has died and been brought back 4 or 5 times. I mean, everybody has died. It's just one of those things. And I like what James Gunn has said here, because in acknowledging that characters dying gives more meaning to the survival of others. When characters dying have no impact because you just know they're coming back, then a character surviving doesn't give you that big sense of relief either. So it goes both ways. I feel like you're kind of, what James Gunn is saying is, not only are you robbed of that heavy emotional moment when a character dies, but to James Gunn's words, you're also robbed of that great sigh of relief when your hero survives, because you knew he wasn't going to die anyway. So I'll tell you what, Rob, I actually hope that in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it doesn't matter if it's, Groot's been killed and brought back a couple of times already, like literally twice he's been killed and brought back, but right. Whether it's Rocket or whether it's Star-Lord himself or Drax or Gamora or something, I hope one of the characters dies, and really does die, to start to instill this sense of actual threat when the characters are in action and death-threatening situations, and you don't actually know if they're going to come out. One of the things that people loved about, I know for me, Sons of Anarchy, like, don't get too attached to any of the characters, man. Because because any of them could die, I knew watching that show that any of these characters could die at any time. And when they're dead, they're gone. And so whenever a gun battle would break out, or this knife fight would break out in Sons of Anarchy, or there was this really tense situation, I would be on the edge of my seat, nails digging into the armchairs, because I didn't know if they were going to make it. And, Game of Thrones had the same thing. Sopranos had main characters killed off, and on and on and on. And I think James Gunn is really onto something here when he says the death of main characters actually gives more meaning to those characters that survived. And I think he's absolutely right. And I'm sitting here hoping he carries through with that to give some of that oomph back to the MCU. Rob, you see James Gunn's comments. What did you make of them?
Well, I think he's right. But, I think as a lifelong comic book reader, there have been many times where characters are killed off and they're brought back. They're licensed characters. They're characters that are on lunchboxes and in action figures. And I just understand that within the context of a comic book milieu, that a character dying and coming back is part of the genre. So while I don't, like you, I mean, I never really think anybody's totally gone. I mean, Quicksilver, the way Quicksilver was portrayed in the MCU, it was not like he was a cornerstone character. He's a cornerstone character in my mind in the comics. But I think that what James Gunn is saying is absolutely correct. But if you're a licensee, or you hold the rights to those characters, which Disney does, it doesn't really behoove you to get rid of these characters forever, because they're beloved. They're beloved to new generations all the time. And I mean, these characters, the X-Men, for instance, have been around since the 60s. And shouldn't they have aged? Shouldn't they have all died of old age by now? I mean, it's not only that they don't die and stay dead, it's that they don't even age. And but I do think that one day there is going to be a significant death. Like I don't expect Hugh Jackman's Wolverine to ever come back, because yes, he did age. And I think that movie really works, and it has a tremendous power in it, because you don't just lose Wolverine, but you lose Professor X too. And the film, it's all about mortality, and it's all about, what do you do? How do you rage against the dying of the light when you're in the last part of your own life? And can you still remain heroic in the face of your coming mortality? And I think the answer is yes. And like James Gunn said, the reason Logan is as powerful as it is because it's playing for keeps. And the audience knows that, and we feel that. And it's a better movie because of that. And I think James Gunn is absolutely right. But, that doesn't mean that I don't think that Tony Stark, as you've said, might be coming back in the future, especially after Doolittle.
Especially after Doolittle. Well said. So the question here is, guys, what do you think about James Gunn's comments? Do you think that he's right, that the death of actual main characters gives more meaning to the others? Or do you see the other side as just like, listen, these are beloved characters, you can't knock them off, even though you could always bring them back in a reboot in 10 years, but whatever. How do you guys feel about it? Jump down into the comments section below and leave us your thoughts. All right, guys, that will do it for all of our main topics today. We're going to go in and take some live questions here in just a bit. But before we do, we're going to let Rob go here. He's got things he's got to do, and then we're going to fly through all the live questions a bit later. But Rob, listen, man, thank you again for being here. We'll, of course, see you back here again tomorrow. But in the meantime, where can people find you in all of your online glory?
You can find me, of course, on Twitter at BurnettRM, railing about Star Trek. You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
Dude, it's always awesome having you here, and we will see you again tomorrow, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, have a good one. All right, guys, that was Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. So we are now going to do what we always do every day. We're going to take just a short little break here. Give me a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill my drink, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom as well. And then we're going to get on to your live questions. So hang tight, guys. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. right, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there to go refill my drink and be ready to go. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the live questions. And we're going to get started off here with Dangerous Lee, who writes, regarding the Han reveal in the Fast 9 trailer, I have a feeling Universal has an even bigger surprise up their sleeve. What if Paul Walker's Brian character returns? Your thoughts? Well, here, that's the thing, Dangerous Lee. There have already been reports that he is back. That there were a number of reports that they had his character, his brother, that Paul Walker's brother, or brothers plural, were there on set. So there is actually a good possibility that he is there. But if he is, I believe it's probably going to be for a very small and short scene. I don't know that for sure, but I believe it'll probably be a very small and short scene if they do that. I think that the bigger reveal is that Han's a bad guy. That Han was taken by the same people that took Idris Elba's character, revived him, made him into a machine. I don't really think that's going to happen, but I think that's the better chance. So we'll have to wait and see, Dangerously. But you're right. The idea that Universal may have an even bigger twist up in mind may be the case. All right. Emad writes, over under 10%. The marketing for the next Fast and Furious movie will be Fast 10 your seatbelts. Fast 10 your seatbelts. Okay, I dig it. That's a good one. I like that. Well said, Emad. Well said. Fast 10. That's a missed opportunity if they don't. It's a missed opportunity if they don't. Jonathan writes, I know it's old news, but with Scorsese and a few auteur filmmakers not enjoying blockbusters like DC or Marvel, it's got me thinking. With so many great independent and original movies on the rise, 1917, Jojo Rabbit, etc., and with DC and Marvel kicking ass with quality and box office success, Endgame, Joker, am I crazy to think that we may enter a war between original movies versus blockbusters? We've got people demanding more originality and other avid fans of comics. I know we're all film fans, but I personally sense a divergence between us fans rising. One who believes comic book movies are too much, and the other side, diehard fans of said comic books. Is it far-fetched? Thanks, you guys are awesome. Well, here's the thing, Jonathan. I think that's just the way it's always been. It's not that there's a growing divide between certain fans who like the artistic, the auteur, the deeper, the meaningful movies, all that kind of stuff, and then fans of big entertainment, fun, blockbuster kind of stuff. There have always been those. There's always been those. And then those of us who appreciate them both. There have always been all three camps. Those who only want to watch the big spectacle movies, those who only want to watch the deeper, auteur kind of movies, and then those of us kind of down the middle that, hey man, we love them all. We love the big blockbuster. We love the big blockbuster. We love the auteur kind of thing. We love all that stuff. So I don't think there is a rising thing of that. I don't think there's a rising of it. I think what it is instead is that it's just becoming more and more pronounced because somebody like Marty Scorsese, and by the way, Marty Scorsese didn't just suddenly feel like this. Marty Scorsese has always felt like that, right? I just think it's become a little bit more prominent. But I really don't think anything has changed. I believe those three groups have always been there. I believe those three groups are there now. And I think those three groups are will be there moving in the future. My one hope is that people on both extremes, the artistic movies only versus big blockbuster movies only, will start to stop being so narrow-minded and start seeing and I hope the people who love comic book movies will start seeing and appreciating movies like Hotel Mumbai, that type of artistic, deeper meaning kind of cinema. I hope the people who are into the deeper meaning cinema stuff will start recognizing the benefit and the positivity of great, fun, experiential entertainment in the movie theaters that a lot of people love and why they love them. And I just hope more people start coming a bit more towards the center and appreciating them both. So that's all we have to hope for, Jonathan. But I don't think it's a growing, rising tide. I think it's just been this way the whole time. I really do. We just haven't noticed it as much, I don't think. All right. Jay Bling writes, The Super Bowl spot for F9 possibly shows the scene where Toretto's father died at the 10-second mark. I don't remember. In the first Fast and Furious movie, Dom talks about his father getting killed in a race, so they'll probably tie that into the brotherly rival. That's possible. Now, I don't remember that detail about the first Fast and Furious movie because I hate that movie. To me, it's a blatant ripoff of Point Break, but whatever. So I don't remember that detail, but if that detail is true, Jay Bling, then I think you're absolutely onto something. I think probably one of the brothers blames the other for the death of their dad and blah, blah, blah. That seems like a perfectly good narrative hook. It seems like a really good narrative hook, so maybe that's the way they'll go. All right, Min Tran writes, just a thought, in the Fast 9 trailer, I saw the return of Mia Toretto and noticed that You See You Again is playing. So is there a chance that Brian is the character that Cena eliminates? If that happens, will you be okay with it, or is that in bad taste? I think that would be in bad taste. That would be in bad taste. Look, I'm cool if you get Paul Walker's brother, one of his brothers, to kind of be a stand-in and say, oh, there's Brian, and Brian has a scene. I'm cool with that. That's fine, actually. I have no problem with that. I think it would be in very bad taste to, in essence, kill him a second time. I think that would be in bad taste. So I don't think they'll do that. And I don't think, look, I'm not saying Vin Diesel is the saint of all saints and he would never do anything wrong or questionable. I'm not saying that, but Vin Diesel has a massive respect for Paul Walker, Paul Walker's family, and Paul Walker's memory. I do not think that Vin Diesel would allow, as a producer on the films, would ever allow them to cheaply resurrect Paul Walker digitally on the screen just to kill the character off again. I understand the character didn't die before. I don't know, but you know what I mean. I think it would be an incredibly poor taste, and I cannot possibly see Vin Diesel ever allowing that to happen. I just can't see that happening. All right. Noel writes, one of two. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Sorry, just having one little glitch. Okay, here we go. Noel writes, one of two. I saw the rhythm section this weekend outside of the fantastic car chase scene. This movie is not very good. The author of the books wrote the screenplay. That's never probably a good idea. And he wrote the screenplay, and the pacing is all over the place. Blake's character just meanders through. Some plot points don't even make sense. I think that I read that 40 minutes was cut from the film, which is good and bad. Good because I couldn't stand to sit through more of the movie, but bad because it could have developed some characters. Overall, the studio knew what it had. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. We talked on yesterday's show about the fact that the new Blake Lively film, Rhythm Section, set the record for the lowest opening weekend in history of a movie that opened to 3,000 screens or more. It was 2-point-something million. Again, broke the wrong record, box office record for the lowest opening of any film. But I mean, not terribly surprising. I saw like no marketing for this film. I saw like one trailer for it. And that's because I heard there was one out and I went out and looked for it and watched it. I never saw a single billboard. And I'm not saying there weren't any billboards. I'm just saying I never saw them. I never saw it play in a movie theater once. And I'm not saying they didn't play them in movie theaters. I'm simply saying every time I went to the movie theater last month, I never saw a single trailer for it play in theater. So if I forgot that movie was even opening and was barely aware of it, I don't know how the average movie-going audience would. I mean, I think you might be onto something, Noel. I think the studio knew what it had. They decided to cut bait, not invest any more money in marketing, and just let it die on the vine. I mean, I'm not saying that is what happened. I'm just saying that's what it kind of feels like what happened, and it's unfortunate because I'm a big Blake Lively fan, and it's too bad that the movie didn't work out. All right. Dave M. writes, top 10. Marriage Story, number 10. Number 9, Dragged Across Concrete. That was better than yeah. Number 8, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Sorry, John. Hey, no problem. If you love that movie, you love that movie. Don't apologize for loving a movie. That's great. Just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it. All right. Number 7, Jojo Rabbit. Number 6, John Wick 3. Number John Wick 3, Parabellum. Number 5, Ford v Ferrari. Number 4, Avengers Endgame. Number 3, Dr. Sleep. I love that movie. Number 2, Knives Out. And number 1, 1917. Nice mix of movies there, Dave. I always like seeing people's top 10 lists when they're really mixed up. You got some sci-fi, you got some action, you got some period drama, you got like whodunits, you got a war film. Nice mix of films in there, Dave. I like your list. All right. Dave M. also writes, Dragged Across Concrete, which we were just talking about, was the unnoticed gem from 2019, the third film by S. Craig Zahler after Bone Tomahawk. Oh, look, you know how we often talk about Jojo Rabbit and the shoe scene? Everybody knows the scene from Bone Tomahawk. It sticks with you forever. And Brawl in a Cell, Block 99, terrific new art tour. Stories are deliberate and brutal. And this is a guy we're going to have to keep our eyes on. And it's going to be interesting to see when a studio eventually hands him a truly large blockbuster to do it, if he can bring that sensibility to it, Dave. Because you're right, this is a guy we should absolutely keep our eyes on. Not a lot of people have seen his films, but the fact is he keeps turning out really good quality stuff, and let's see what happens to him down the road. All right, James Germain writes, Hey, John. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel like Henry Cavill is going to pull a Dominic Toretto with Superman in the DC universe, where we don't see him for a while till the stink dies down and he comes back with the Fury. What are your thoughts? The problem with that, the problem with that theory, dude, is the fact that, hold on a second. The problem with that theory is that with Vin Diesel, that was a situation where Vin Diesel didn't want to go back to it, right? The situation with him in the Fast and Furious was he wasn't really interested at that time in going back to Fast and the Furious. He wanted to do other things. And eventually he decided to go back. That's not the situation with Henry Cavill. It's not like Warner Brothers is like, hey, Henry, we want you back as Superman. That's not the case. And Henry Cavill's going, no, I'm far too busy to do Superman right now. That's not the case. It's quite the opposite. Henry Cavill's like, hey, dudes, I'm ready to play Superman again. And Warner Brothers is like, we got no plans for you, Superman, right now. So it's actually a completely, totally opposite situation. If this was a situation where Warner Brothers was just waiting for Henry Cavill to say, yeah, okay, I'll be Superman again, we'd have a new Superman movie right away. But it's actually the opposite situation here. So, which is unfortunate because I freaking love Henry Cavill as Superman. So we'll see what happens as we move forward. All right, let's see. The World's Greatest Detective writes, The World's Greatest Detective. Hey, John, my worst movie of 2019 was Joker. I strongly hated that movie because I'm Batman. And I'm sure Batman did probably indeed hate that. He probably would very much hate that movie. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, bitter nickname for CW Superman, Jobberman or Super Job? I'll go Jobberman because Super Job would have some other more risque connotation. So I'll go Jobberman in the CW Superman. All right. Tachyon of the Saurus writes, Brewster and Vin Diesel can be related, but not Cena. Doesn't she look anything like Vin? Actually, she kind of does look like, look, here's my thing. As an Italian, I think the similarity between him and the girl is a lot closer because I look at me and my sisters, right? And I see what similarities there are and what similarities there aren't. I actually see a lot more similarities between, and I'm not saying if I saw the two of them on the street, I would pick them to be siblings. But if you propose them to me in a fictional setting that these two are siblings, I can buy into that. I can't buy into it with John Cena and Vin Diesel. I just can't buy into that. But we have trouble believing Cena and Diesel could be related. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do believe they're two completely different situations. I believe one is believable as on-screen siblings, one is not. But Robert brought up a really good point today about that. It's like, what if like one of them is an adopted brother, right? What if Jacob is Dominic's adopted brother? Well, then that clears all of that up. I thought that was a really, really good point that Rob brought up. Because if it is that, then it doesn't matter. Then it's a concern that I have that isn't worth being concerned about. So, but listen, it's one of these issues that you have before watching the movie. And then what happens? You sit down in the movie starts, you're told that these two are brothers, and you just accept it and you go with it, right? It's kind of like when they have to recast a character. Like when they needed to recast Dumbledore because of the death of the previous actor, yeah, at first it's like, that's not Dumbledore. But then you watch you sit down in the movie and a couple of minutes pass and your brain tunes in and goes, okay, this is Dumbledore. And the same thing will happen in Fast and Furious. That, okay, they're saying John Cena and Vin Diesel are brothers in this. Okay, you retune your brain and your brain tunes into these two are brothers. And you just accept it and you roll with the movie. So, there's a lot of times like myself and a lot of film fans will have an issue with something before we go into the theater. But then once you go into the theater, you just accept it and you let it happen and you just kind of judge it on its own merits after that. And I've got no doubt that's probably what's going to happen with the John Cena Vin Diesel thing. It's just something that stands out to me right now as I see it in the trailer. I'm sure it won't be a real issue once the movie starts. All right, next up, Figgy Theory writes, hey, John, longtime viewer, first time commenting. Thanks so much for writing in, Figgy. There are so many great stories told within video games, especially now with modern graphics. Yet I know many people who would love to see stories, who would love these stories because they don't want to play a video game to experience it. Well, I mean, here's the thing, Figgy, and I'm about to say something you're not going to be completely happy with. For the most part, I think stories in games are great for games. The primary mission of a game is to create great gameplay experiences, not necessarily to tell great narrative stories. When you can make a good, solid narrative story as a part of the gameplay, it enhances the experience, absolutely. But I think a lot of people confuse, and this is just my own personal opinion. That's just my own personal opinion. I think a lot of people confuse the great experience they have with a story in a game for being a great standalone story on its own, when it's really impossible to separate those. Now, having said that, even I, who am skeptical about it, even I have said we are seeing more games these days, I believe, coming out with truly what I would call cinematic narratives. I really thought that Uncharted Thief's End was a cinematic style narrative. I think God of War, the most recent one, was a very cinematic style of narrative. The Last of Us is indeed a very cinematic narrative. Now, there are others that people consider that, and I look at it and go, nah, I don't really think so. I just think it's a great story for the gameplay. So it's kind of torn between that sort of thing. But listen, a game is a game. People shouldn't go and play a game just so they can see the story. If they want to watch a story, they can watch TV or watch a movie. The goal of a game is to have a great game playing experience. The goal of a movie is to have a great sit down watching the narrative unfold experience. So they're two different things that perform two different jobs. And I think we need to respect that. And I think we need to respect more the work of game developers who do that sort of thing. But even I, the skeptical one, I see more of it happening today. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it all goes in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be really interesting. All right, Figgy also writes, I understand that movies are a little bit easier to watch, which got me thinking, do you think story-based video games such as Spider-Man PS4 should make a theatrical cut for the more general audience? Keep up the great work and bring the filthy. I don't. And I've gone through... I played a little bit of Spider-Man. I never finished it. But then I watched the entire cutscene movie. And I think Spider-Man in the PS4 is a great example of what I was talking about. It is not a standalone narrative story. It is a story that plays wonderfully as a part of a game. As a part of a game, that story is perfect for that game because it brings you in and drags you along. But as I sat down and watched the cutscene movie, I realized apart from the gameplay and taken away from what it was designed for, I don't feel, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, and that's totally cool. We're all allowed to disagree. But I feel like when you stripped away the gameplay, you realize this is not how this narrative was created. This narrative was created to interact and to be a part of that gameplay. And divorced from that, it doesn't stand on its own nearly well enough, which is perfectly fine because that's how it was designed. That's what it was intended for. So yeah, like Spider-Man 4, great story play for a game. I don't know if it's a great starting point narrative to make a motion picture out of. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me in that, and that's cool. But that is kind of how I feel about that. Anyway, that's just my opinion. All right. Han always had it coming. Hashtag sorry, Rob. Nothing personal. Han had it coming. But that does raise a great question, right? We brought this up earlier. Is there just hashtag justice for Han? Because if Han didn't die, no justice was ever required, right? No justice was required for Han. There was no punishment needs to be doled out on Jason Statham's Shaw character because he never actually killed him. Huh? We'll see how that plays out. We'll see how that plays out when the movie comes out. All right. Nate Dogg 101591 writes, cool if Kennedy wants more female directors. I'm all for it. But we all know whoever she announces is likely to be removed from the project due to creative differences or some nonsense or the after. I said the exact same thing. And look, you're absolutely right. That's the thing. Even if she does name a female director, which I think is great, I don't buy into the fact that that person will actually direct the movie because 6 months later, there'll be the mysterious creative differences thing that happens almost every single freaking time with their movies. But yeah, basically on its own merit, on the surface, look, Kathleen Kennedy, this whole notion that she just has an anti-men agenda is ridiculous. Every single movie for Star Wars that she has overseen, she has put a male director in the chair. You cannot make any legitimate argument that Kathy Kennedy has an anti-men agenda and nothing but pro-female agenda and all this kind of stuff when you sit down and look at the facts. Facts are, and the numbers don't lie, every single director she has hired, including the ones that eventually left because of all the creative differences, every single one of them have been men. Every single one. Now, I'm not saying that means the next one has to be a female director, but considering they have access to a lot of really good, talented, up-and-coming female directors, it would seem odd to continue to have a policy of exclusion and not giving one of them a shot when you're giving a lot of other people a shot. But again, I agree. I have a hard time. I'm going to have a hard time, even if they announce Deborah Chow, who I'm a huge fan of Deborah Chow. If they announce that Deborah Chow is directing the next Star Wars film, I'll be excited for a minute, but then I'm going to temper my excitement because I don't really believe that it'll happen because eventually they'll depart over creative differences. So I don't know. I'm just being pessimistic. Now I'm just being jaded and pessimistic. But that's kind of what the situation has made me. Anyway, Murray Reich writes, I think it was Chuck from Supernatural. You have to watch Supernatural to know what that means. I think it was Chuck from Supernatural that brought Han back from the dead. Dude, if they cross that over, glorious. I'm all on board. Again, you'll only get that if you watch Supernatural. Well said, Murray. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, finally got around to seeing Jojo Rabbit, the scene where Jojo's mother dies, and he... Cinema Reviews writes, sorry, don't worry about that. Mandalorian of Gondor writes, one of two. With Birds of Prey coming this week, do you think it can reach Joker or Logan's box office opening weekend numbers? Also, with the Oscars celebrating all things film this week, I think now would be a good time to share a few lists I made this week, starting with Best of 2019, including HM Include Crawl. I don't know what HM. Include Crawl, How to Train Your Dragon 3, Booksmart. My top 10 honorable mentions. My top 10 2019 Avengers Endgame, number 9, John Wick 3, number 8, 1917, number 7, Knives Out, number 6, Toy Story 4, number 5, Peanut Butter Falcon, number 3, El Camino, or number 4, El Camino. I was kind of disappointed in El Camino, I'll be honest with you. Number 3, Honey Boy, number 2, Marriage Story, number 1, Joker. Fabulous movies listed on there. Mandalorian of Gondor. As far as can it reach the opening weekend box office numbers of Logan, or Joker, I don't think so. And I don't think it needs to. I honestly don't think it needs to. A second here. I really don't think it needs to. I think, look, I know when we all think, let me just bring up something here. I know when we all think of comic book movies opening now, we all think in terms of the hundreds of millions, right? We think in terms of the hundreds of millions, that it's got to have this much, and this is what it's got to open with, and blah, 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 blah. But I think a movie like Birds of Prey, if they can open north of 40, I think they're doing okay. If they can open north of 40, like they don't need to make 80 or 90 like Logan did. If they can open north of 40, they'll be perfectly fine. Now, look, if they do make that much, gravy. But I don't think it's going to open that big. I could be wrong about that. I'm not willing to bet the farm on that, but my initial thought is I don't think it'll open that big, but it doesn't need to open that big. If it can open, here's the thing. If it can open to north of 40 million, and if it can get positive word of mouth, like the initial social media reactions have been very good, if now the review embargo lifts tomorrow and they're all really good, and then if the early fan reactions are all very good, it could it could do well long term. It could do well long term. Now, look, I've admitted on the show, I'm not really excited about this movie. That's fine, like I am for the other DC movies, like I am for the upcoming Black Adam or Wonder Woman 84 or what have you. I'm just not as excited for this one. But so far, things have sounded pretty positive. We'll see how this all goes. All right, Tom Gillard writes, over under 5% that Fast 9 opens with the dead speak, kind of like Rise of Skywalker. The dead speak. Han has mysteriously reemerged. I'll take over 5% on that, as a matter of fact. I will take over 5%. All right. Christopher Benson writes. Let's see. Christopher Benson writes, with Han's return revealed in the trailer, there has to be some other surprise in F9. Not sure what, but I believe there will be. I agree. And I think, I'm not willing to put money on it, but I think it has something to do with Han. Whether it's he's a cyborg or he's the villain or whatever, or he's actually Han's twin brother. I agree there's some other big twist. Not that Fast and the Furious movies need big twists, but I agree with you on this, Christopher. I think there is still another big twist coming, and I think it will be centered around Han. And what it is, who knows? I'm kind of guessing, even though I wouldn't put money on it, that Han is a cyborg, kind of like the way Idris Elba was in Hobbs and Shaw. But we will find out soon enough. All right, Porg Hub writes, on suspending disbelief for Fast and Furious, I also have to do that for John Wick. Unless he is really Neo from The Matrix, he does not get up from that fall at the end of number 3. Also, best jump scare for me is the demon appearing behind Patrick Wilson in Insidious. That's some pretty good stuff. Insidious, The Conjuring, all these modern movies, they have a lot of good jump scares and all that kind of stuff. Listen, here's the thing that I only ask. I understand that movies can get into the ridiculous. And to a degree, movies will ask us to suspend disbelief. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a movie setting its own rules of reality. Whatever its rules are, just tell me what the rules of reality are for your movie. They don't have to match the real world. Just tell me whatever the rules for reality are for your movie or your TV show. And I'm fine with that. In this reality, people can pull their fingers off and stick them on their feet. Okay, if you tell me that's the rules of reality in your universe, I can buy into that and watch. Where I start to get a problem is when movie franchises and stuff like that start to break their own rules of reality. It's like, that's not how that happens in the universe that you set up. You've already established in your universe that's not how that happens. So that's the thing. I'm totally for suspension of disbelief. You tell me whatever the rules are for your cinematic universe. Then all I ask is you stick to your own rules for your cinematic universe. That's all I ask. And I start to have a little bit of a problem. And even by Fast and the Furious logic, there's been a lot of suspension of disbelief in the Fast and Furious franchise. But even by Fast and the Furious logic, some of the things we saw in this trailer go way beyond their own definition of their real world stuff. But again, like the John Cena thing, I think once we get into the movie and our brains retune and we just go, okay, this is what can happen in this movie. Fine. And then we just kind of roll with it, right? So we'll see if that plays out that way or not. All right. Poor Cub also writes, I saw Jojo Rabbit before hearing you discuss the shoe scene and just assumed Taika and Tarantino's foot fetish when they kept showing Scarlett's shoes. And then the payoff happened and my heart sank while saying, oh God, I've made a terrible mistake. I mean, it is, I'm sure you guys are getting tired of hearing me say it by now, but it is simply one of the most moving, powerful, insanely good scenes I've seen in a movie. It's going to be a scene I remember for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life as a film fan, when somebody says the shoe scene, I'll instantly flashback to that scene. It's just such an amazing scene. The way it was set up and everything, just utter perfection. All right, Taki75 writes, do you think that Feige was always planning to pair Falcon and Winter Soldier, or he got the idea because of Mackie and Stan's great on-screen chemistry? Well, I mean, it depends by what you mean of always planned. Like always from the first day that they shot Iron Man? Was he planning on eventually having these two characters and eventually doing a spin-off series of theirs on Disney Plus? No. But I have a feeling this was in the works as of Winter Soldier. I think as of Captain America Winter Soldier, this was in the works. And I think a lot of us had a feeling there could be something there, especially right from that scene when, Cap kisses his own niece. You remember that. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Cap made out, stuck his tongue in the mouth of his own niece. Just let that simmer for a minute. Anyway, so from that scene, and then the camera flashes to Bucky and Sam in the car going, what a great scene that was. That was a great scene. But I have a feeling right from there, I feel like Kevin Feige may have been laying the groundwork from there. So always, like all the way back to Iron Man 1? No, but at some point that idea came along. And I think it might have been even as early as Winter Soldier. And I don't know that. We'll have to hear from Kevin Feige at some point, but I suspect it was early. All right, Jetfire97 writes, do you have a favorite Super Bowl halftime performer or performance? Mine is Super Bowl 50 with Coldplay, Bruno Mars, and Beyonce. That was a good one. My favorite one, granted, I'm a little bit biased here, but honestly, my favorite one will always be the U2 halftime show. When they brought down the giant curtain all the way from the top of the stadium and ran up the side, a projection of all the names of people lost on 9/11 and stuff like that. It was just, that was the best. But I'll tell you what, man, the halftime show this year was spectacular. I love that Shakira, Jennifer Lopez halftime show. I thought it was absolutely fantastic and I loved it. But yeah, my all-time favorite one is U2. Prince was a great one. I thought the Tom Petty one was a really, really good one. So yeah, a lot of good ones, but this one was great too. This one, Shakira and J-Lo, was fantastic. All right, Terrell Wise writes, will Disney Plus make 3 to 5 season shows and cancel like Netflix? Oh, who knows? I don't know if they're going to make 1 season shows and then cancel. I mean, they just started. I mean, let's face it, 90% of shows don't go past season 4. 90% of the TV shows out there don't go past 4 or 5 seasons. Most shows never make it past season 1. Right? So we have literally had one show, high profile show. We've literally had one show on Disney do 1 season, and that's Mandalorian, at least as far as their high profile stuff goes. One show has had 1 season. It is far too early for us right now to sit down and speculate, will they make them 3 to 5 seasons and then cancel them after 3 to 5 seasons? It's way too early to tell. All I would suggest is that, again, keep in mind, the vast majority of shows don't make it past that on cable network or anything. So, I mean, a show may last 1 season. They may only have plans for a certain show to be 2 seasons. Maybe they will go 7 or 8 seasons. I mean, who knows? But right now it's way too early to tell. Just again, keep in mind, 90+% of shows never make it past season 5. So just keep that in mind. All right, Tiberius writes, thanks to the John Campea Show community, I saw Jojo Rabbit last Saturday and was blown away. Never seen anything like it. Best movie I've seen in a long time. Never would have known about it or likely seen it without the heads up and encouragement of your shows. Thanks. Oh, thank you so much for the... Hey, listen, it is one of the great things that I love most about doing this show, which is the fact that people can see and find out about and discover other movies or shows or great little things, either because me and Rob or Aaron or Chris are talking about it, or because other people write in questions to do recommendations. It is one of my absolute favorite things. One of my absolute favorite things when somebody like you, Tiberius, writes and says, you know what, I watched this show because I heard people on the show talking about it, either with some of the fans or you guys on camera were talking about it. Now I love it. I love that. I love that. So thank you for sharing that, Tiberius, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Again, it's my number 1 favorite film of the year. All right, Frank Van Wordhuizen, I'm sure I'm butchering your name, man. Please forgive me. Writes, hey guys, everybody is loving the way Gerald Geralt, you mean, is saying and fuck in The Witcher. Do you think the makers know this, and will they expand on this in season 2? I think they knew people were going to dig it when they wrote it. That's why they wrote it, right? I don't know how you expand on that. You just have him say at the appropriate times, or swear. But I don't think you expand that. I don't think you expand it. Just have him say it. Don't push it. Don't overdo it. Just have him say it when the character would say it. So I think the better phrase here, Frank, is that they will continue it. They will continue it. Hopefully they don't fall into the trap of, people seem to like it. Let's do it more, because that's not a good thing. But just continue the way you handled it before. If he's in a situation, if Geralt of Rivia is in a situation where he would say that or say that, then have him say it. And if he's not in a situation where he'd say it, don't force it and make it tired. So I think they will continue it. I don't think they will expand it. All right. Fabian Vegas writes, "Hey, John and crew, what are your thoughts on 2002's Equilibrium with Christian Bale? I absolutely loved it, and hear nobody talking about this film. Why is it? As a matter of, it's funny you mentioned that. Just a couple weeks ago, Equilibrium got brought up on the show, and we talked about Equilibrium, so it's there. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, though, not my favorite Christian Bale film. And hold a second, I forget who directed it. Oh, let me bring this up. Let me see here. I did know who it was. Kurt Wimmer. That's right. Kurt Wimmer directed it. Totally forgot about that. But you got Sean Bean in there. You got the guy from Breakout, Prison Break, and Legends of Tomorrow. Why am I freezing on his name? Dominic Purcell. You got Dominic Purcell in there. I admit, not my favorite movie. Not my favorite movie. Not bad. Not bad. It just not my favorite. I just remember the poster looked a little too Matrixy for me. But Christian Bale was solid. I mean, Christian Bale is always solid. So yeah, there's that. All right, let's see. Joaquin Phoenix writes, "Hey John, this reward season," he probably meant award season, "I was doubted, but that phased me one bit." Probably mean didn't phase me one bit. "As the Oscars are approaching, I feel confident I'll walk away with the Best Actor award. Do you stand with me on this, or who should I be nervous about?" Well, no, I think it's clear that Joaquin Phoenix is going to win Best Actor at the Academy Awards. However, out of all 4 major acting categories, lead actor and actress and supporting actor and actress, I believe the one that could be upset is Joaquin Phoenix. I think he will win. But there's no way Laura Dern isn't winning for Best Supporting Actress. It is highly doubtful that Brad Pitt isn't winning Best Supporting Actor. It's highly doubtful that Renee Zellweger isn't going to win Best Lead Actress. Joaquin Phoenix is going to win Best Actor, but out of all 4 of them, if any of them had a even semi-legit chance to be upset, it's probably Joaquin Phoenix because of Adam Driver in Marriage Story. People loved, particularly Academy members, loved Adam Driver in Marriage Story. And for good reason. He's freaking brilliant in it. He's absolutely brilliant in it. So I think Joaquin Phoenix does win. I think he takes that trophy. I totally do. But if any of those 4 are going to be upset, the one he's got to keep his eye on, I think, is Adam Driver. So we'll see how that all kind of turns out. Let's see. Let's move on here. Next up, B. Sweaty writes, "Hey, John and Rob, during the WandaVision teaser, she and Vision are seen standing in front of 2 cribs. I believe this is a play on one of the Full House shows. Wasn't Elizabeth Olsen's sisters the twins in that show? Thanks and love your show." Yes, Elizabeth Olsen's 2, Mary Kate and Ashley. Is that the 2? Is that the 2 Olsen twins' names? Mary Kate and Ashley? Anyway, yes, they were twins, but I don't believe it's a play on that. I believe it's a play on the fact that in the comics, Vision and Wanda have twins. So I believe that's what we're seeing a play on. Because we do see one shot in that teaser that she's pregnant, and then we see one of the twins and their pacifiers come flying up. I believe that is a play on the comics of them having twins. So I could be wrong about that, Be Sweaty, but that's what I think it's a play on. I don't think it's a play on the Olsen twins thing. All right, 50 Shades writes, can we count Paul Rudd in that Tom Cruise / Keanu Reeves category of actors that never age? He looks the same as he did in the final season of Friends, but with shorter hair. Dude, it goes even worse than that. Or better, depending. You go all the way back to, what was that damn movie that Paul Rudd was in? That teen comedy that everybody loves. The one with, why am I forgetting the blonde girl's name? Sorry, guy. This is going to kill me if I don't look this up. Sorry. The one with Alicia Silverstone. Let me see if this will pull it up. Okay, no, that's not going to pull it up. What was the name of that Paul Rudd movie? This is going to kill me unless I look at it. I'm sorry, guys. I've got tunnel vision on this right now. I absolutely have to know what that movie was. It was called, not forgetting Sarah Marshall, Veronica Mars, Knocked Up, Deus Ex, Diggers, Daily Show, Baxter, Tennessee. Come on, where is it? It was before 40-Year-Old Virgin. It was called, all you guys are probably screaming at me through your computer monitors right now, and I can't find it. Clueless! That's what it was. Clueless. And just as I do, I look over the class chat board and everybody's firing in Clueless. Clueless. Okay, so Clueless. He barely... And Clueless came out when? When did Clueless come out? 1995. 1995. Like 20, what are we at here? 25 years ago. Holy shit. 25 years ago. Paul Rudd barely looks a little bit older today than he did in Clueless like 25 years ago. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You bet your ass. Paul Rudd at midnight sacrifices baby otters to his lord Satan to keep whatever's going on with him going on, because he barely looks more than a couple of years older than he did in Clueless at this point. It's absolutely insane. Okay, anyway, Eric C. writes, what is your favorite show which showcases a great deal of diversity, race, gender, while not offending the mouth breathers? Mine would be The Expanse. People from Earth, Mars, and space, and this makes sense. The worst is Friends. No minorities in New York City, I guess. I don't know. Look, I never had a problem with Friends, and to this day I still don't, because it's a core story about 6 friends, and 2 of them are siblings. A couple of them have been, and a lot of them went to school together and were been friends since they were very young. It's not that there are no minorities in New York. It's just that it was a story about this particular group of 6 friends. I never really saw a problem with it, but then again, you know, I'm in that demographic, so, I mean, why would it bother me, I suppose, at that point? I don't know. I've never really thought about it in those terms, Eric. I mean, The Expanse is a good example of that. The Expanse is a good example of that. You got a woman who's the president of all of Earth. You got male, female, different genders, different sexual orientations in it. It's very much a good pick. It's a good pick. Again, I don't know that I can pick another one off the top of my head because I don't really think of terms in those terms when it comes to shows. But yeah, when you mention The Expanse, that's a good one. I think that's a good one. All right, Jerome Smith II writes, 1 of 3. So over my 4-day weekend, I caught up on some films and they were all very good ones. Zombieland 2. Listen, I'm in the minority. I like Zombieland 2 even more than the first one because I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. I liked the first one, didn't love it. I had a better time with Zombieland 2. I thought it was pretty fun. Hobbs and Shaw, ridiculously fun, and Crawl, surprisingly good. Really enjoyed this one. Hereditary, creepy good, and Toni Collette was masterful. Toni Collette, she should have been nominated for Best Actress for that, to be honest with you. Ready or Not shocked me. Holy hell. This movie was good. Overlord, damn good. I enjoyed Overlord too. Nobody went to go see it. I thought Overlord was a lot of fun. Damn good movie, and that opening scene alone made me wish I saw it in IMAX. That shit was intense. Over under 15%. Petro M cameo in WandaVision. Of course, that's Quicksilver for people wondering. Will Quicksilver, Wanda's brother, appear in WandaVision? Over under 15%. You know, that's a good question. And 15% is a good line. That's a good line for that over under. I'm going to take the over on that. Like, I wouldn't say over 50%, but 15? I'll take the over on that. I do think we could see that, Jerome. That's actually a good call. I'll be honest. I'm surprised I haven't even thought of that. Yeah. I'm going to take over 15% that we see Quicksilver in the WandaVision show. All right. Next up, Matthew Phillips writes, an observation I've made about the MCU is that it always revolves around the Avengers. B characters introduced all get tied into the main team. It's as if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality until other big Marvel groups arrive. We need side stories. Do you? Do you though? I mean, let's take a step back for a second and look at what the MCU has been. Because I agree, like, we get all these characters come in and they eventually somehow, some way will tie to the main overarching Avengers storyline. Do you need to do something different? Look at how much the critics love these movies. Look at how much the fans love these movies. Look at the money these movies are making. Are we in a position right now that we can say anything needs to happen? I don't know. It's tough, but I will say this. With the coming of Fantastic Four, with the coming of the X-Men characters and all that kind of stuff, I do believe you're going to see that start to happen. I think that will be a part of the evolution of the MCU in a post-Endgame reality. I think we will start to see that, Matthew. So whether they have to do that, I'm not so sure. The results say otherwise. But I do think it's something they're going to do. I think it's something that you're right about. I think it's something they're going to do. So let's see how this all evolves. All right, K Major writes, hey, John, not big news, but Jumanji climbed its way to a nice $754 million. Not bad at all. No, it's great. I mean, again, fell well short of the last Jumanji, but $754 million is fantastic. It's simply fantastic. It's a great result. I didn't like this movie as much as I liked the first one. Hey, I had fun with Jumanji, the second part. I had fun with this new one. I just didn't like it as much as the first, and that's fine. And so it comes about 200 million short of the last one. That's a big dip, but it doesn't matter. 754 million is a great result for that movie, and they should all be very, very happy. I don't think they should make another one, but if they do, I'm sure that one will be profitable too. All right. Sam Nyson writes, hey, John, seeing Birds of Prey tomorrow, and I cannot wait, but I'm a little tired of people ranting about it being woke or whatnot. What happened to movies just being fun? Listen, everybody brings a political agenda to a movie, right? Like, they see 20 movies where it's all male teams, and there's no problem with that. As soon as they start putting a female teen on screen, everybody starts yelling woke. It's like, what? Shut up. As soon as somebody uses the word woke, I know to tune them out. I just don't listen to them anymore. I mean, it's perfectly in their rights to feel however they want to feel. I just know as soon as I hear anybody even use the word woke, I'm like, okay, I'm just tuning you out. It's because nothing constructive is going to come out of any conversation with you at that point. So it's whatever. Look, this movie's either going to be good or bad because it's good or bad. I mean, that's just the bottom line. If it's bad, it's going to be bad because it's a bad movie. If it's good, it's going to be good because it's a good movie. It's not going to be good because it's female characters. It's not going to be bad because it's female characters. Their characters happen to be female in it. Now it's going to either be a good movie or a bad movie. So people just need to come to grips with that. Anyway, I'm not seeing it till Thursday. I got the invite to the press thing. I decided to take a pass on it, but I am going to see it Thursday. And I got to admit, with all the buzz I'm hearing about it, I'm actually looking forward to seeing it now. So I'll make a quick out of the theater reaction video for it on Thursday night once I go see it. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Sam. K Major writes, you heard it here first, John. A distress signal is sent from Cybertron and intercepted by no one other than Dominic Toretto, who sets out to right the wrongs and brings the Cybertron family back together. He straps his car to a rocket and makes his way to Cybertron. Listen, you're joking. All right? You're joking. I know you're joking, but would anybody watching this show right now bet $100 against that? Would anybody right now put $100 against that happening in Fast 10 or Fast 11? Obviously, we're joking, but I wouldn't put any money against it. They're going there, and I have no doubt Fast 10 will be them going to space. Maybe even as far as Cybertron. Low percentage, but I'm not going to put any money against it. At this point, I'm putting no money against it. All right, Jacob Silvers writes, did you know that little girl who came up and sang with Jennifer Lopez at halftime was her daughter? Not when it happened. I thought, okay, this is kind of nice. Although I will admit, it's a little odd that they have Jennifer Lopez doing a pole dance and then immediately have a bunch of children on stage. I thought, interesting choice. But I remember when that little girl was up there, I thought, oh, this is sweet. And that little girl, wow, she can sing. Okay, cool. Yeah. It wasn't until after the halftime show was done that I heard somebody mention that that was Jennifer Lopez's daughter. I'm like, that was J-Lo's daughter? So I went back and watched it again. I may have watched the Super Bowl halftime show 5 or 6 times. I may or may not have watched it 5 or 6 times. Anyway, I immediately went back and watched it again. I'm like, holy crap, that's great. Nope. So I didn't know it at the time, Jacob, but I thought that was great. I thought that was really, wow, that kid's, she gets it from her mom. That kid is talented. And I think her dad, right? Her dad is her dad, who's not A-Rod, but her dad, what's her dad's name again? He's a famous singer too. But anyway, so clearly she inherited some singing genes from her parents. All right. Let's see. K Major also writes, movie ends with Dominic Toretto driving his car off the back of Optimus Prime and driving out an atomic punch Megatron yelling family who now sees the error of his ways, and they all share a Corona at the end. Boom, 2 billion. Yep, Megatron realizes, Optimus, I always just looked up to you and I've always just wanted your approval. Oh, Megatron, come give me a hug, brother. And then they all, sit down at the family dinner and save family. And then Han ends up being an evil android transformer who kills them all. So we'll see how that all works out. All right, Jared Morris writes, you want to talk about a painful image? Remember the Kimura arm lock Khabib had on Michael? Yep, I do. I thought he was going to rip it off too. Joe Rogan, Derek, why you take your pants off? Derek Lewis, my balls was hot. Gotta love Derek Lewis. Dude, Derek Lewis has some of the all-time great post-fight interview one-liners. And by the way, how about the UFC this weekend? Listen, the last couple of fights John Bones Jones has had, I've said that they handpicked terrible opponents for John Bones Jones lately that everybody knew had no chance against John Jones, right? Including that Smith kid and whatever. Although the last fight, that dude took it to Jones, and I think the only reason he lost that fight is he tore the ligaments in his knee. That said, this Dominic Reyes kid is legit, right? He's got all the tools of the fighters who've actually given John Jones a lot of problems, right? Like when you look back at his fights with Gustafsson is one of the rare fighters that equaled John Bones Jones in height and in reach and size and all that kind of stuff. And that gave John Jones, particularly in their first fight, a lot of fits. Dominic Reyes is faster than Gustafsson is. He's more powerful. He's got a lot more power in his shots than Gustafsson is. He isn't quite as good of a boxer as Gustafsson is, but he's got a much better grapple game than Gustafsson does. It's going to be an interesting fight. I think John Jones has a real fight on his hands. And Valentina's fighting this weekend as well. It's going to be a great card. All right, Shane Roxas writes, Dom, how are you alive? Han, the dark side of the family is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. You know, I put up a companion video yesterday, and the title topic of the companion video was, will Fast 9 do a better job of explaining the return of Han than Rise of Skywalker did for Palpatine? Because it can't do any worse. But oh my God, can you imagine if he just showed up and there was no explanation as to how he's alive? Can you imagine if they did that? It's unfathomable. And yet that's what Star Wars did. It's crazy. Anyway, I would pay extra money for that movie ticket, Shane, if that's what he actually said in there. All right, Jesse writes, the Fast saga will end like the Lego movie. All along, it's just been a kid and his dad playing with toy cars. That's why the movies have gotten so crazy. And more, the kid is doing crazy things. I love it. That's a theory, Jesse, I had not considered, but you could absolutely be onto something. All right, Todd S. writes, hi, I'm a fan of the Cavill / Affleck versions of Supes and Batman. You and me both, brother. I understand Superman versus Batman and Justice League underperformed, but they made money, just not Marvel money. I know it's too late for Affleck, but with Supes, I think a strong script would be what they needed. Thoughts? Listen, it's more than just that. Look, Batman versus Superman, and Justice League in particular. Justice League didn't just underperform. All right? It didn't just underperform. That was a movie that not only should have in its sleep made $1 billion, it's a movie that should have had the potential, not automatically do it, not necessarily do it, but it was a movie that at least should have had the potential to maybe even dream about the $2 billion club. You know, you go back a few years and say a Justice League movie. Yeah, easy $1 billion, make $1 billion in its sleep, no problem. Hell, if things go really well, if all the right pieces fall into place and lightning strikes just the right way, it could be a $2 billion film. Mid 600s. Mid 600s. For Justice League. For Justice League. Mid 600s. That shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened. Batman versus Superman is a movie that should have been $1 billion in its sleep. Should have been $1 billion film. Easy. It's Batman versus Superman. Should have been $1 billion easy. It didn't get there. Didn't get there. It did better than Justice League. And it made money. So that's good. But it's the two most iconic and famous superheroes in the history of superheroes. And you have a movie called Batman v Superman? That should have made $1 billion in its sleep. It didn't. Didn't get there. You know, that's one of the reasons why I laugh when some people will say, now listen, I am a critic of Kathleen Kennedy because of the way she's mismanaged being able to work with filmmakers and the talent there. That being said, you can't deny what she's accomplished. And, you know, I always laugh when some people who think they know what they're talking about say, well, anybody could have been the head of Lucasfilm and any Star Wars movie would have made $1 billion. That's not true. That's simply not true. Look at Batman versus Superman. Look at Justice League. Those are properties that easily should have, like, if anybody was running them, they'd make $1 billion. Clearly, that's not true. It's like when a coach is an incredible coach and leads their team to the championship and people go, well, anybody could have been coaching that team and they would have won the championship. And we've seen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's just not true. It's just not true. The thing with Henry Cavill is, look, everybody knows Ben Affleck is my favorite Batman. Henry Cavill is my favorite Superman. But it's not just a matter of just get a good script together. It's Warner Brothers needing to assess, has the damage been done? If we make another Superman with this Superman and with this actor who is great in the role, is it too little too late? Has the damage already been done? Would we be fighting an uphill battle? And I think where Warner Brothers is at, and I can't really blame them if they are, I think where Warner Brothers is at right now is we've already taken several swings at the plate with this iteration of Superman. There's too much negative baggage attached to it now to revive it. It's time for us to start fresh. Go off, do something different, and then start fresh with a new Superman sometimes later. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with them. But I'm saying that's where I think their thinking is right now, and I understand it. It's not what I would do, but I get it. Because there is some sound reasoning to that. So it's beyond just needing a good, strong script now. I think it's beyond that. It's not like everything's just at a level playing field right now, and all they need is one good, strong script, and everything's fixed, just like that. Now, winning cures everything, but I think they're so far in the hole now, and they squandered having a brilliant actor playing Superman, like Henry Cavill. I think they might look at themselves as being too far in the hole. There's too much of an uphill climb to make. It is better for us to cut bait, go off in a different direction away from Superman, and then when we do come back to Superman, it's a new iteration of Superman. Again, I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm not saying that's what they shouldn't do. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm just saying I think that's what their rationale right now is, and I understand the logic. Even if it breaks my heart that I won't get to see Henry Cavill as Superman again. And I hope I do. But I kind of get it. So we'll have to see, Todd. We'll have to see. All right. Just time for a couple of quick more ones, guys, and then we got to wrap it up here today. Undead Sick 83 writes, "Hey, John, have you heard about the rumored Resident Evil live-action series Netflix is going to make? Will they never learn? The fans already hated the movies and the seventh game. Third time is the charm. Thoughts?" I haven't really heard about that. Look, I'm not a fan of the Resident Evil movies, just to be, clear about it. I'm not a big fan of those movies. But I haven't heard this rumor about Netflix doing a series about it. If they do, and it's a total reboot, then maybe there could be something there. Just because I didn't like the last iteration of the story doesn't mean I couldn't like future one. If they're just continuing it on, then I don't know, that becomes questionable. That becomes questionable. I'm not really sure, but I think that becomes a little bit questionable. All right. Last couple of ones here, guys. Undead Sick 83 writes, "Hey, John, how do you feel about Alex Kurtzman doing a Clarice Starling series? I wasn't the biggest fan of Hannibal, but I feel like it's disrespectful towards Brian Fuller since he wanted to bring in Clarice and Buffalo Bill for a potential fourth season." I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally fine with it. I like, look, there's some stuff Alex Kurtzman has done that I'm not a fan of. And we actually talked about this a few weeks ago. But he's also done some very, very good stuff. And I'm sorry, but this whole thing about it's disrespectful to this actor or to this showrunner, no, it's not. It's not their property. It doesn't matter what they wanted to do. It's not disrespectful to them. Just like, as much as I'm a huge Gaga fan for Henry Cavill, it's not disrespectful to Henry Cavill for Warner Brothers to do what is best for their character, what they feel is best, I should say, for their character and their property to do their thing and do what they feel is best. It's not a reflection of respect or disrespect on Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill does not have any ownership in that character. Henry Cavill is a paid actor who is paid to play a role and has done it great, and I love the dude. And I want to see him continue as Superman. But if they don't, it is neither a respectful nor a disrespectful thing to him. That's the business. So, no, they owe nothing to Brian Fuller. And I like Brian Fuller, but they don't owe him anything. It's not his character. He doesn't own it. They're going to do what they feel is best for their properties and wanting to make a good show. And if they can do it, that's their right. It is neither respectful nor disrespectful to Brian Fuller. Brian Fuller was hired to do a job. And it kind of ends there. But so I don't really see it in those terms. So I'm all for giving this Clarice show a shot. Like I said, Alex Kurtzman's done some not so good stuff. He's done some very good stuff. So we'll see. We'll give it a shot, and then we'll judge the show on its own merits. All right. Suthius writes, "Dom, Han, how are you live?" Han, because I know. I hope they don't go that way, Suthius, but they very well may. All right. Goku on Goku's son, Dragon Ball Z. Final question of the day today. Writes in, simple question. Do you think we will ever see a biopic film about the life and career of Ozzy Osbourne? May the filthy be with you. Simple answer to that, Goku. Whenever you use the word ever, whenever you use the word ever, the answer is automatically always yes. Do I think it'll ever happen? Sure. Might not be this year, might not be 5 years from now, might not be 10 years from now, might not be 20 years from now. But listen, in an industry that is always looking for content and for story ideas, a biopic about Ozzy Osbourne and the incredibly colorful life that this dude has lived, I can't see them not. So ever, yes. This year, no, but ever, absolutely, I totally see it. Especially, like, I'm not big on biopics generally, or the concept of biopics about musicians. I'd rather see biopics about people who really mattered, who saved millions of lives, cured polio. I want to see, things about those people. But I love Bohemian Rhapsody and I love Walk the Line. So, hey, there's that. Anyway, but when you're looking at people are obsessed with musicians' biopics, and Ozzy Osbourne is one of the more colorful personalities in that realm. So I could totally see it happening. I could totally see it happening sometime. All right, listen, guys, from everybody else who still has questions outstanding here, from Not My Episode, Carlos, Ryan, and everybody else all the way down, do not worry. Your questions are getting answered today in a companion video. So you sent in these questions, and I thank you for that. So your questions are going to get answered properly in a companion video a little bit later today. Keep your eyes open for it. But for now, guys, that does it for all the time we have here today for today's John Campea Show. Thank you so much, guys, for being here and being a part of it. Don't forget the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow, so make sure you come on in and join us. Just a word to the people in the Discord chat. You guys go on over, have a post-show chat. We've got a shoot today for the documentary that we're working on, so I've got to run and do that. So we will pick it up tomorrow. I will see you guys in the Discord chat, in the John Campea post-show chat tomorrow. That is for our Patreon supporters, of course. So yeah, that'll do it for me for now, guys. Listen, thank you so much for being here, guys, and making this show a part of your day. Special thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for bringing his glory to the show, and we'll see him again tomorrow. And a very special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but you supported the show while you were doing it. And all of us here, thank you very much for that. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.